From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
Hi, this is Micah Halpern, sitting in for Teisha Bader, and here is the JBS News Update for Monday, December 13th, 2021. On Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett traveled to the United Arab Emirates. It is the first official visit of an Israeli Prime Minister to the Gulf nation. The invitation to Bennett was extended in October by Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. Relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates came about as part of the Abraham Accords that were signed last year at the White House under President Trump. This high-level trip comes amid heightened regional tensions as world powers try to renew a nuclear deal with Iran. Israel has broached the idea of setting up joint defenses with those Gulf Arab states that share its concern over Iranian activities. But the United Arab Emirates has recently begun to court Iran, sending a top official last Monday and recently hosting Iranian diplomats. The Office of the Prime Minister reported that Bennett thanked the Crown Prince and spoke with the ambassador about bolstering bilateral ties also, increasing regional cooperation and strengthening the Abraham Accords. Quote, "The stronger the ties between Israel and the United Arab Emirates will be, the better for regional security and stability," Bennett said. An agreement was reached in Manhattan Supreme Court. The agreement was between Michael Steinhardt and the state, agreeing to return 180 antiquities, objets d'art, that he bought, not knowing that they were stolen. The 180 items were valued at $70 million. In addition, Steinhardt agreed to never again collect antiquities. Steinhardt is a major Jewish philanthropist. He is the co-founder of Birthright, the organization that brings Jewish young adults to Israel for the first time in their lives. Birthright has injected Jewish identity into tens of thousands of young Jews. It is essential to know that the antiquities world is filled with ugly, nefarious, and underhanded deals. This agreement acknowledges that Michael Steinhardt did not steal, nor did he commission theft. He bought the items from authorized dealers. But nevertheless, it is illegal to purchase stolen goods even if you do not know that they are stolen. During Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz's trip to Washington, D.C. this past week, he made it abundantly clear to U.S. officials and to anyone else who would listen that Israel is preparing to strike against Iranian nuclear facilities. Gantz said that he had told the IDF to prepare for a strike. That is a quote. According to a responsible source, and here we're quoting, "The Americans are with us, and at the same time, we, as Israelis, need to understand that the United States looks at the world broadly and has other priorities," unquote. The source went on to explain that despite Washington's apprehension, there is no veto regarding a potential strike on Iran, and then added, if the Americans decide they have had enough, they will not jump on the military option right away. Instead, they will put pressure on Tehran, all the while preparing for a military action as well. To send a direct message to Iran, in addition to an IDF aerial drill meant to simulate an attack against Iran, Israel and the United States are expected to announce joint military exercises about this very issue. This is something that used to happen a lot, and now it's happening again. What is it? A Hamas member was killed when the tunnel he was digging collapsed on him. It was not clear if this was a new tunnel he was digging, or if it was an older tunnel that was destroyed and he was clearing it out and refurbishing it. What is essential is that this story is that tunnels are being dug by Hamas again. Tunnels have two purposes. Purpose number one is to attack Israel. Purpose number two is to protect Hamas leadership who seek protection from Israeli air attacks in the tunnels. Whatever its purpose, we have another example of what appears to be Hamas readying for another confrontation with Israel. Israel has completed the building of their superb, super high-tech border with Gaza. Avi Kochavi, Israeli IDF Chief of Staff, announced the completion of the project. The project was originally announced in 2016. Benny Gantz, Israel's defense minister, said the border was a barrier, which is an innovative and technologically advanced project, deprives Hamas of one of the capabilities it tried to develop. It places an iron wall, sensors, and concrete between the terror organization and the residents of Israel's south. Kochavi puts it this way: we have responded with force to any minor violation along the border and will continue to do so. We are bolstering our defenses on all fronts, including against Iran. The border runs beneath the ground. Its exact depth is a military secret. It is filled with sensors which will monitor sounds of any movement or digging, pounding or slicing. This smart border is 40 miles long. Above ground, the fence is 20 feet high. That's easy to see. It's outfitted with remote control weapons. There is, of course, a seawall also. Israel is planning to build a similar structure along their border with Lebanon. According to Gans, in order to change the reality in Gaza, there are simple steps that must be taken, including ending Hamas's military buildup, a long period of calm along the frontier, and the return of Israelis held by the terror group in Gaza. Archaeological excavations and salvage digs in Israel are the norm. While expanding Route 90 in the Galilee at Migdal Junction, the salvage dig discovered a synagogue. It was the second synagogue to be unearthed from an ancient village of Migdal. The first was uncovered in 2009. 2 synagogues in one town sounds like a famous joke. This is the first time 2 synagogues have been found in a single small town like this. But the ancient town of Migdal is not a typical town. It's the birthplace of Mary Magdalene. From the Christian Bible, Mary Magdalene was a major supporter of Jesus. The village features prominently in the book of Josephus. He describes it as his base of operation when he served as the head of the rebellion against Rome in 67 of the Common Era. The first synagogue was unearthed in the market area. The second synagogue is in the residential area. The thinking is that the synagogues were used not simply for prayer, but also as social meeting areas. And now, here's what comes up next on JBS. At 7, Hadassah podcasts host Dina Kraft and producer John Kross discuss their podcast, which provides a look into the daily lives of Jewish and Arab citizens of Israel. At 8, author Daniel Sokatch breaks down issues of Israeli-Palestinian conflict and discusses why Israel matters and why it's important to care, and other ideas in his book, Can We Talk About Israel? A Guide for the Curious, Confused and Conflicted. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with Shai Held on L'chaim. And at 10, historian Simon Shama speaks at the 92nd Street Y. Coming up next, it's Good Week Israel. This is Micah Halpern on the JBS News Update. I want to wish everyone a good evening.